Hello and welcome back to And the Runner-Up Is. This week on the show, we'll travel back in time to the 55th Academy Awards, which awarded the films of 1982. Steven Spielberg, fresh off another major populist and Oscar hit with Raiders of the Lost Ark, returned with an even bigger phenomenon, E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. The film was a smash hit that appealed to all audiences, allowing it to break the record for highest-grossing film of all time. The film went into the Oscar race as a major candidate for Best Picture and earned 9 nominations, and by the end of the night it walked away with 4 wins. But Best Picture went to a far more traditional epic, the biopic Gandhi. So why did E.T. come up short in the end? We'll explore all this and more as we discuss how the Oscar almost went to E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. Welcome back to And the Runner-Up Is. I am your host, Kevin Jacobson, and today I have another special new guest on the show. She is from the OscarWatch Podcast, a very excellent podcast that everyone should subscribe to. I have with me Amy Thomasson. Amy, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here tonight.
Yes, we have a very good year ahead of us. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
I did.
Excellent.
Very nice. And what a great movie to cover for the day after Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Yes. I watched this last night just like to end my Thanksgiving, and it was just like, this is what it's all about.
Really the best way to do it.
It really is. Yeah. So let's talk about it. We are going to be talking about the runner-up of 1982, which I and many others believe to be E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. So first, let's get into a very quick summary of E.T. It is a sci-fi drama about an alien who accidentally gets left behind on Earth after a mission gone wrong. And meanwhile, we have Elliot, who is this average suburban kid who happens upon this alien outside his house and secretly takes him in, befriends him, names him E.T., and sort of just teaches him the ways of the world. And Elliot eventually introduces his big brother Michael and his little sister Gertie to E.T., and they kind of all keep this secret from their mother. And Elliot also starts to have this psychic connection with E.T., and he later tries to, help him communicate with his species in space to come get him. And we also have these shadowy government agents.
Literally shadowy.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. We definitely have to mention that later.
Yes, who pop up throughout the film, who kind of want to get the alien to do their own bidding with it. So the film was directed by the great Steven Spielberg with an original screenplay by Melissa Matheson. And and it stars Henry Thomas as Elliot, Robert McNaughton as Michael, young Drew Barrymore as Gertie.
Yep.
Dee Wallace as their mother, Mary. Peter Coyote as one of the more notable government officials who we kind of get to know a little more, and Pat Welsh as the voice of E.T. So E.T. made $359 million at the box office. Easily the number one film of 1982. At that time, it actually broke the all-time record from Star Wars. And by today's standards, adjusting it for inflation, it made $1.29 billion.
Yeah.
So,
and that's not even the merchandising. I mean,
it is a global phenomenon beyond, like I've said that certain movies are phenomenons and big hits on this show before, but like this is beyond that. So the film was nominated for 9 Academy Awards and won 4 of them, but not Best Picture. So Amy, tell me about your relationship with E.T.
I apparently am a freak of nature. This movie came out in 1982, so it came out when I was about 3. So I was too young to really have seen it, and then for some reason, I just never did. I don't know how this happened. Something happened with Star Wars movies, if this makes any sense to anybody, because it doesn't to me. I look back, I'm like, somehow this entire iconic thing totally skipped over my house. And then I think I only saw it when I was an adult at, like, my friend's house when I mentioned I had never seen it, and she immediately was like, "Get your ass on that couch, we are watching it now." And I really, really liked it, and then just another 10 years went by, and I watched it for this podcast, and it was really nice because I was watching it with my husband who hasn't seen it since he was about 10.
Hmm.
So, it's one of those life things, which when you have a movie that's so effective when you're young and you connect to it so, so much, and then you watch it as an adult and you're almost afraid that you're gonna see all the holes in it
Mm-hmm.
and be like, why did I like this movie?" And it's sad because it totally brings you down. Spoiler alert, this was not one of those situations.
Yay! How
I
could it be?
think
Yeah.
it's a more fresh perspective than someone who is just so emotionally attached to it.
There you go. Yeah. So safe to say that you love this film.
I
Yeah.
did, I'm trying to hold off and
Okay.
on
Good.
all the things that I loved about it, 'cause it really okay, I'm gonna give some stuff away now.
Okay.
The thing with Steven Spielberg is he's such a great technical director, and I feel that that really is what people love about him. He did the D-Day invasion, he did the movie about the Holocaust, and Indiana Jones, and these really technically brilliant films. And I think he does not get enough credit. As much credit as he gets, which is a lot, he doesn't get as much credit as being like an actor's director. And yet you look at the performances that he's able to get from children, and they're some of the best performances ever. Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun would definitely be one of those.
Yeah.
All of the kids in this movie would be another one, and because he's not an actor's director, because he's such a film director,
Right. Exactly.
that I feel like that whole part of his genius really gets overshadowed by the other 10,000,000 things he's a genius at.
Amy finally giving credit to Steven Spielberg.
And I feel like I never do, because on our other show, which everyone hopefully you'll start listening at home, I like a lot of the older films. Billy Wilder is my personal friend, even though he's dead,
Sure.
but Spielberg, he is such a genius, and it does make me sad that people talk about his technical prowess instead of the innocence that he gets from these kids. It's so good, and again, if you haven't seen Empire of the Sun, go see it. Christian Bale is amazing.
Very good. Yeah.
You
And
heard it here first.
yeah. And speaking on that emotional development, I have to say this is one of the most emotional films. I mean, I can
Easily.
I can say that I did watch it when I was a kid, but I had not watched it for many, 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 many years until now. So this was exactly that experience you just described of I watched this when I was a kid multiple times. Will it hold up when I'm an adult? Maybe not. Kind of how I felt about the Goonies, just saying.
Yep.
But I could say that this absolutely holds up. I think it beautifully captures the time capsule of just being a child and all of the various factors in that, both positive and negative.
And the fact that it's not dated at
Right.
all.
I know.
There's a
Absolutely
couple
so.
things in there that I was like, "Wow," they wouldn't the fact that all the it looks like the kids are smoking at the beginning of the movie when they're all playing
Yes.
Dungeons& and Dragons, because there's a lot of smoke effects going on in the film,
Right.
but I was like, are they, like, smoking? Because it looks kinda like they are, and where's the mom, and which ones live in the
Mhm.
house and don't you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that kind of stuff is very late '70s, early
Sure.
'80s,
That is fair. Yeah.
but the movie could take place now in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Beyond just that is just, the little conspiring against your parents sort of thing, the fear of
Yeah,
the unknown,
yeah.
wanting to tread into more adult territory sorts of things, and, little traumas of dealing with other children who are like bullies and stuff.
It is, and being being the little kid
Hmm.
amongst older kids because something I could totally connect to. We had really good friends of the family who were basically like cousins, and I was the young girl. Then there was my sister who was 3 years older. Then there was a boy that was her age, and then there was a boy that was 5 years older than me. So
Hmm.
my sister kind of got in for being the same age, but I was like, they had no use for me whatsoever.
Yeah,
And how I, like, worshipped them and just wanted to
exactly.
be involved, and they were all really mean to me, but, like, I still was like, "Come on, guys, like, let me
Yeah,
play with you," and they were like, "Fuck off." I
exactly.
wouldn't say that, but that's kind of how I was treated, but and
Yeah.
back in those days, parents left kids alone to just we didn't go running to tell mom and dad and, oh, Elliot didn't tell his mom, "Oh, make them play with me." He just kinda had to fight his way in there. That's how it used to be, kids.
It is, yeah.
We had to fight
Absolutely.
our own battles.
Very much related to that whole aspect of things. I am a younger sibling, so
Exactly.
I feel it. All the ugh, yeah. But and even like some of the darker themes when it comes to like suddenly grappling with loss, dealing with the loss of a friend, a loss of a parent. It's just so heartbreaking.
But yet, not heavy-handed at all.
That's
So
exactly right.
well, and that is what makes movies like that so effective. It's not,
Hmm.
"Oh, it's about a little boy who's traumatized." No, that's in there, and when oh god, and now, of course, as an adult, you also kind of feel for the mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elliot's like, "Oh, yeah, he took his new girlfriend to Mexico."
Mexico.
You feel the 8,000 arrows going into her heart and how she
Yep.
needs to hold it together. Then you see the older brother's perspective when he's, like, protective of the mom, like, "You're such an idiot, like, shut up, why are you saying that?" So, uh, it's so
I love
good.
that. I love that part of it too. Yeah. And I have to say, I do appreciate that whole, her being a single mom on her own isn't really like this gigantic issue that is
Yeah,
constantly being pointed out or anything like that. I mean, she is going through her own things in that regard, but it's really feels like a case of this is just their lives and it's
yep.
perfectly natural. And so many people deal with this of
The fact that
broken
she leaves
homes.
the fact that she leaves him home when she thinks that he's sick
Yeah,
would not happen now. She'd
that's
have
absolutely true.
watching that. I mean, it's just so funny that nowadays things are so different, where I thought I would have to take a day off of work. I couldn't and how old is he anyway? I was trying to think about it. He's 8?
Yeah, I think 8. That sounds
And
right.
but then again, as a single mom, I'm like, "That's hard. She's
It
gotta
is.
go. She's gotta make the money.
Yeah.
If your kid who's sick." I mean,
You definitely feel for her, even though it's a small part, all things considered, but
but what she did with it and made it a
yeah,
real you feel her struggle, but she doesn't make it all about her.
exactly. It just feels so natural and like effortless. So
Mhm.
very good. Very, very good. And I think it also does a good job of showing how Elliot is really feeling that lack of like a male figure in his life,
Yep.
in a sense. And that's kind of what he gets from ET. And it's both like a nurturing kind of a showing him all the ways of the world sort of thing,
Mhm.
and also being this really guiding force almost when it gets to all the psychic
And
connections.
Henry Thomas, man.
Yes, let's talk
Listen,
about
it's
that.
like he should have been nominated for an Oscar for this part.
That is such a great kid performance.
Really one of the best, and there is a fine line, we talk about this on our show about kids, where really, unless you're a Italian child actor in one of the Italian films, there's such a fine line between endearing and honest, and you wanna punch them in the face.
Yeah.
The "you wanna punch them in the face" is my recent example. I finally watched the movie The Blind Side. The
Oh
little
dear.
the little kid SJ in The Blind Side, I've never wanted to punch a kid so hard in the face in my life. This child's like I had an irrational dislike of this child
Oh
watching
dear.
the movie because I was watching it and I'm like, "I know they're really trying to push this kid on me so that way I think that he's cute,
Hmm.
but he's annoying, and I think Michael Oher deserves better friends than this little annoying white kid."
Correct. Yeah.
And I have a lot of issues with that movie, but I'm not getting off track.
Yeah, that's like issue 8 of this film. But yeah.
But just to say that there's so many cases where it's done badly, but Henry Thomas is just honest
Yeah.
and wide-eyed and natural and heartbreaking and adorable.
And he's
And
such a sensitive little boy, you know?
it reminded me of my son, which made it
Oh,
even more emotional. Because my
yeah.
husband and I were like, "Are you thinking that he's just like William?" Because I think he's just like our son, who just has this big heart and just wants to love.
Ugh, exactly. And he just cares so much about creature, like with the frogs and stuff, you know.
Yes.
I love that kid, you know.
And they
And
didn't try to make him cute, and that's what was
right,
good about it.
exactly
And
right.
even Drew Barrymore, who was really cute in that movie,
She's precocious.
she's precocious, but she's still funny.
Yeah, she's the comic relief,
And
and
she's like,
I think
"Give me a break."
give me a break, which I read was ad-libbed, so
Me too. I was like,
kudos to her.
"Oh."
Yeah, very good casting all around, I have
Yeah.
to say. Let's talk about just the like the cinematography and some of the color work in this
Oh,
film, which I think is so memorable and evocative, especially with like the fogginess and the
all the time. All
yeah.
the time with the fog. Like I said, at the beginning, even when they're in the house and there seems to be smoke, and I was like, "Are they smoking? How
Yeah,
old are these guys?"
right, exactly. Yeah, but like, you know, the shot where Elliot is outside looking into the little shed thing and
Mhm.
there's the in the blue beautiful blue sky with all the fog and
Oh.
everything. So good. And yeah, I think the film is just so well shot that I mean, obviously the big
Fine, that's
bicycle into the sky.
oh, with the John Williams score. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all just so perfect.
I'm like I have to get
Really
up.
feel
I
like
need to
thinking
have a
about it
moment.
because it's so, like to say that Spielberg is a genius and a master filmmaker is such a understatement, but it's true. It needs to be acknowledged because as often as it's said, it bears repeating, and there's a
Exactly.
reason for it, and it's because he gives us those moments where even though by now we've all kind of seen that famous bike ride and it's crossing over the moon and the music and the everything, it still makes me hold my breath. You still get that, like, sense of wonder when the bike starts to take off and you
Mm.
you just inhale, and it's just perfect. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Like when they weren't even off the ground yet and I already had chills.
And it's
Yeah.
one of those that there's a few movies where I wish that I could go back in time and see it in its first release before it becomes a whole big thing.
Right.
The Star
Exactly.
Wars movies, obviously.
Mhm.
Psycho, another one.
Oh, yeah.
E.T., you know what I mean? Just to experience it before it becomes this big iconic thing and just, like, clear slate, don't know what's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
to have that moment, and I'm so jealous of all the people who get to experience that for the first time.
I know. I know. I just wanted to talk about how a lot of this film, I feel like it's very show don't tell. I feel for like
Mhm,
most of the first half of this film, and it just has this weird like wistful magic to it that I just find so intoxicating that
mhm.
by the time we get to the second half where things get to more like the government officials have come in and ET is
Scary
like
part.
very scary, very traumatizing. Which is just like these shadowy figures we've seen throughout the movie who
It's
don't seem to have
faceless.
faces.
Yes! Well done, Mr. Spielberg.
Such a great choice. That when it gets to that part and it's the emotion and everything, I feel like we've gotten to know these characters so much. We feel like we know them in our souls and the relationships with each other that the moments towards the end just feel all the more like they pay off so well.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of dialogue of and what I love about that is we know that he's a lonely kid. He never says, "I'm lonely." He just makes the comment like, "Oh, I wish dad was here. Dad would believe me." That's it. That's how we know. It's not, you know, overwritten
Exactly.
as it easily could have been. Nice job, Melissa Matheson.
Right. Who really does not get enough credit for this
No,
film. You know, everyone says Spielberg, you know, he's great, which we've already have said multiple times, Spielberg, masterful
we
filmmaker.
did. Yes.
But that screenplay, I think the film would not be what it is without the way that the whole arc is
No.
so well written, I
And they
think.
worked closely together from the research
Yeah.
that I did. They worked very closely together, but it was natural. For such a fantasy movie, it feels very natural, which is why in 2018, it still seems fresh, it still seems real.
Yeah. But on the flip side of real, one thing I took note of is the amount of kind of references to either just fantasy or, movies kind of
Yeah,
escaping to other worlds throughout this film, between obviously the Dungeons and Dragons at the beginning,
yes.
the mother reading to Gertie Peter Pan, like the
The
movies being shown.
watching Yes, I was just gonna say that, watching The Quiet Man,
Right. Yeah.
which for people like you and I who are film people, those are things we can relate to.
Yes, and those are things like the adults in the audience could be like, "Oh, wow, that's so nice."
Yes,
Even like, E.T. reading the Buck Rogers comics,
yes.
this motif of just people kind of escaping the real world and looking in this sense of wonder, which I think is so perfect that this film is doing that, because that's what this film is to so many people.
It is, and one thing I love about certain filmmakers when they're not just these master filmmakers, when you also see them being such a big fan of other films, like Scorsese's one of them, and Spielberg, that as he's such a genius, but he's also such a fanboy of John Ford and all those filmmakers, and you can see how much he loves these filmmakers if you watch his films.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a big goon, just like me. It's the only way I will ever relate to Steven Spielberg. I am not a
Exactly.
filmmaker, but like him, I think The Quiet Man's a really great movie.
And it can lead to this psychic connection that an alien can have with a boy to kiss a girl in their science class.
And such a romantic yes, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Which I
exactly.
didn't realize because I also didn't see The Quiet Man until about a year ago, so
There you go.
and someone was like, "Oh, you never saw that?" And they were like, "It's in E.T." And I said, "I don't remember E.T." And then some can't talk to anymore.
Oh, the spirals, yeah.
It does, that
But
movie rabbit hole you go down.
yeah. So going back to the music, John Williams' score is iconic. Obviously, the scene where they're lifting off is, again, gives me chills, makes me have this Pavlovian crying response every time I hear
Every
it.
single time. Every time. I
Just
do,
like,
I
damn
hold
it.
my breath and I get chills.
Exactly.
It's like on cue, just like a cue for the music and cue Amy getting chills, and now.
It's like this beautifully engineered thing for emotion. It's
It
so great.
really is. And
Yeah.
yet not manipulative.
Right. Not sappy, not sentimental, just perfect fitting for
And it
that
could be.
experience. Oh,
That's
yeah.
the thing, is it so easily could have been, and the fact that it's not shows even more how brilliant this movie is.
Right. And I feel like Spielberg kind of gets criticized for things like this, of really tapping into that emotional sentiment a lot, especially with the scores. But this one in
Mhm.
particular, I think, is just perfect
Those
for what it
people
is.
are just wrong. That's it. You're wrong if you think that. It's not
Sorry.
even really a matter of opinion, that's just wrong.
Objectively wrong. Yeah. So, and also just, the ending, with the little, I don't
Oh.
know, whatever you call it, with the music is so good. And the ending itself, I was having a full body response. Just, I mean, I know this ending.
Yes.
Everyone knows how this film ends, but
Even if you haven't seen it like me, I'd seen the end of this movie about 100 times.
no, there you go. Yeah.
With the finger. Oh.
Oh my God. Like it was way too much for me. I was
And again, the performance of Henry Thomas, I will come back to this again and again. That wide-eyed look of wonder, that pure innocent expression on his face during that scene.
yeah,
If you had any other kid do it, it wouldn't have worked.
right. And
The
that
kid
is
has got that emotion, man.
mhm. And that is the audience surrogate. That is all of us watching this film, is just with
Yes.
that wide-eyed wonder. So well captured.
And it's
Ugh,
not easy to do. It's not easy to capture childhood in a realistic sense.
I know a lot of people have tried.
Everyone tries, but that really all the right notes.
Oof. So did you have any sort of nitpicks or negative feelings about the film? Because I want to balance this a little bit as much as I
Really,
can.
I really didn't. Like I said, the only ways that it seemed dated is in the parenting styles of the early '80s, which was the kids are doing their own thing, the grown-ups do their thing. That's it. But that's how it
Exactly.
used to be. Like I said, when we used to get together with those friends of the family, my mom wasn't like, "Oh, you all have to make sure to include Amy." No. She was off with the grown-ups. I had to fight for my spot at the table.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a natural way to do it. But yeah, this movie is pure magic. The only word I can really use to describe it.
It really is. It's a perfect film, and I don't say that very lightly.
Yeah, 5-star film for me, but by far. It's and I again really do not give those off often enough. But I mean, yeah, just the scene in the end where he's saying, "I'll be right here."
Oh.
Just having that experience, and we've all kind of dealt with things like this in our life of somebody either leaving or passing away, or just you're not going to be with this person anymore, or this pet or anything like that. And just that experience of saying like, I will still be with you, inside, is just
Mhm.
so beyond powerful for me that
It really is. You're
I
getting emotional even just
yeah.
talking about it and recalling it, but that's effective filmmaking.
It is. Yeah.
That is effective filmmaking, and the fact that you could see it as a small child and then see it 30 years later and it
Hmm.
still gets you.
Yeah.
That's a gift, and
It is gift.
not a lot of artists have that kind of effect on everyone.
Exactly. So Steven Spielberg, Melissa Matheson, everyone involved, bravo.
Thumbs up.
Job well done. I think you made a good film. Not gonna lie, I feel
You
like
did.
but yeah, I mean, I really feel like it could have gone very easily wrong, you know
Oh,
like the puppetry could have been very goofy looking and not believable.
they
The
could have easily miscast the kids
Yeah.
and
And
just made it a cute little movie.
right.
Instead of a poignant movie, it could have been just a cute movie. Or
Exactly.
made the mom, like, ditzy and, like, "Oh, stupid mom, and the kids are smarter than the mom." That
Right.
would've really rang false too.
Yeah. I feel like this is absolutely the template for what filmmakers who make family friendly films nowadays should be going back to more than
Exactly.
anything.
Or have, like, a monologue between the mom and Elliot, like, "Oh, champ, I know you missed your dad, but I love you too." They would do that
Oh yeah.
nowadays.
It would have been completely
And a whole
overwritten.
monologue and, him expressing his loneliness and all that stuff, and it would've just been awful.
Yeah, exactly. So
Awful.
so I'm glad that they actually took some care into, I mean, the Spielberg knows what a good film is. Like,
Mhm.
so I feel like in the hands of a master, this is the result, and it's beautiful, and it's a
It was
treasured classic.
really young when this came out. I mean, this
Yeah,
was not that long after, Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, come
true.
on. What?
Yeah. And
What?
I'll just end this segment by saying, thank God they never made a sequel.
Oh, agreed, which they would do now.
Yep.
Avatar, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, Avatar with its 4 planned sequels. But yeah, they apparently had discussed the idea of doing a sequel called E.T. 2 Nocturnal Fears. That's real. Or
Oh
at
my
least it could have been real.
god. But and he's smart,
Right.
because this leaves you wanting more,
It does.
and that is always the best way to go.
That's exactly right.
But
Yeah.
it would have made an ass load of money.
Yeah. Right.
That's how he could have earned the money to do Schindler's List. I mean, you know, amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
And that shows a lot of restraint, and that's a true artist. He doesn't wanna degrade his work just for money. George
Right.
Lucas, I'm looking at you now.
Ew. Yeah. But apparently it was like going to be about Elliot and his friends getting kidnapped by, it says getting kidnapped by evil aliens and following their attempts to contact ET for help.
Audience members at home, you can't see me, but I'm covering my face and shaking my head.
Yes. But Spielberg said he decided against it because it would do nothing but rob the original of its
Yes,
virginity. So there you go.
yes, thank you, sir.
Yes,
Remind me to send you a muffin basket.
exactly. We are eternally grateful. Okay,
Yeah.
so with that, I mean, pretty much everyone has seen E.T., but if you have not, for God's sake, please watch it
Watch it again,
or
watch
watch it
it with
again.
your children, and watch it with
There's,
your kids.
it's never a bad idea to just watch E.T. with the people you love or by yourself,
Yes.
whatever it takes. So,
It
when we come back, we'll be discussing why a beautiful, beloved classic like E.T. lost Best Picture to a movie called Gandhi.
In 1975, he directed Jaws. In 1978, he directed Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In 1981, he directed Raiders of the Lost Ark. And now, Steven Spielberg brings us E.T., the Extra-Terrestrial. We will witness the arrival, the search, the desertion, the fear, the discovery, the friendship,
I'm keeping him.
the secret, the love, the warning, the signal, the mystery, the danger, the intrusion, the wonderment, the enchantment, the hope. The connection has been made. Universal Pictures presents Steven Spielberg's E.T., the Extra-Terrestrial.
And we're back. So now we are going to be talking about why E.T. lost Best Picture to Gandhi. E.T. was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Steven Spielberg, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, Best Sound Effects Editing, and Best Visual Effects. And it won 4 of those for original score, sound editing, and visual effects. So it really cleaned up with the technical awards.
And John Williams, because he's John Williams.
John Williams because John Williams, yes. But before the Oscars, E.T. actually won the Golden Globe for Best Picture Drama. It also won.
And that surprised me.
Yeah, I know.
That surprised me when I did my research.
Yeah, but then I looked and I saw that, Gandhi was in the Best Foreign Film category. Again, I went through this when I talked about A Passage to India. I don't understand the qualifications there, but okay. So E.T. also won WGA for original screenplay, plus the Critics Awards for Los Angeles and Boston. It won both of the Best Pictures there. Meanwhile, Gandhi won the DGA and BAFTA, plus Critics Awards itself, New York and National Board of Review. So, Amy, why do you think Gandhi, our old pal Gandhi, won Best Picture?
Here's why I think it did. There are certain films and certain film roles that are rewarded because of what they are representing, what they are about, rather than just because it's the best film of the year. My go-to example of this is Gregory Peck beating out Peter O'Toole for Lawrence of Arabia because he played Atticus Finch.
Right.
I think they're giving the award to Atticus Finch as opposed to Gregory Peck's performance of Atticus Finch, which is why that explains not only why it won Best Picture, but why Ben Kingsley, who gave a great performance, won over some equally, if not better, performances that year from people who were gigantic legends who had never won before. I'm looking at you, Peter O'Toole, for my favorite year, and Paul Newman,
Mm,
who at that point had not won an Oscar
right.
for The Verdict, which would not have been one of those, oh, he's been around a while, let's giving him an award. It is one of his best performances he's ever given.
Amen. Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman for Tootsie, which
Right.
is all-time greatest performances either.
Yeah.
I think if you're going up against Gandhi, you're going to lose. If you're going up against Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, you're going to lose, even though that is not who I would have voted for that year.
And I will just point out that Daniel Day-Lewis is in Gandhi.
What?
Yeah. Yes, in a very, very small role. He's just basically playing a racist.
Oh, one of many British racists. But
yes.
it is a good movie. It is a movie I've sat through. I don't think I've ever actually sat through the whole thing. I think I watched it in like hour chunks.
Right.
And it's big and it's expensive and it is an important film with a capital I. And it's about this, greatest human being that ever lived.
Yeah.
That is why the film won. And it is a fine, like I said, it is a fine film. I'm not going to say like, oh, that piece of shit won, like, because that's stupid. I'm not going to say that. But it is a very important capital V, capital I film. And E.T. is a sweet film. Tootsie, I think, could also arguably be the best picture of that year.
Mm-hmm.
Just a classic, but it's a comedy, so therefore it doesn't seem as important.
Yes. Exactly. Took all the words out of my mouth, basically, there. Yeah, Gandhi is the big sweeping epic that was consistently rewarded through the 80s and a lot in the past, obviously, before that. And so kind of a no-brainer when you look at the lineup. Just like, you don't even have to watch the films, honestly. You can look at the synopsis on IMDb and say, hey, which of these films do you think won Best Picture based on what you know about the Academy?
Yes.
And you'd be like, Gandhi, obviously.
300,000 extras at one point for the funeral scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a big technical achievement of its own, just the logistically.
And it's directed by someone who has the Sir title.
Exactly.
I mean, it seems, a very mucky muck.
Yeah, Sir Richard Attenborough. And him and many of his technical people also won Oscars. E.T. won some technical awards. A lot of the Gandhi people won the rest of them. So it was either Gandhi or E.T. when it came to the Oscars this year. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think Gandhi is a very good movie for what it is. I think it's maybe a little too safe. It's it's incredibly. It's over 3 hours, so be prepared to just take an entire afternoon to just be in Gandhi. It has an intermission, for God's sake. But
for some reason, David Lean did those movies better.
Yeah.
Agreed. I know that David Lean was considering making a movie about Gandhi.
Yeah.
If my research was correct.
Yeah.
But he decided to make Lawrence of Arabia instead. Better choice there, Mr. Lean. Better choice. Yeah, movies like Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge on the River Kwai, much more watchable than Gandhi. Gandhi's not the most watchable movie of the epic. It is not. And I love an epic. I love an epic, but Gandhi's not one of the good ones.
Yeah, it's very much
respected more than it's actually loved.
That's exactly right. I just feel like it doesn't really have those big moments really that you remember at all.
It doesn't. And I think what works, and again, I'm just going to compare it again to Lawrence of Arabia just because it's another big sweeping biopic, is that it looks like Gandhi's just this perfect godly human being. He doesn't even seem human. And I kind of need that in a film if I'm going to relate to someone. And I'm not saying make it up or show him being a jerk if he wasn't. But he still seemed like this mythical creature as opposed to a man.
Right.
And they all treated him like he was, where Lawrence of Arabia, 4 hours long, big, huge, beautiful, sweeping epic. But you still felt like you saw the conflictedness of Lawrence, and you have all those moments, those small, intimate moments, despite the fact that it's also the sweeping epic.
Right.
And would it have killed you to get Maurice Jarre to do the score for Richard Attenborough? Because if you're gonna make an epic,
right. Yeah, I just feel like it really plays things very safe and is kind of presented in a way that everyone already knows about Gandhi, just in general, and does not really dig deeper into exploring more complexity beyond that, which
exactly.
So
it is.
I don't know. I mean, I understand.
It's like reading a long Wikipedia article about the man.
Yes, it's just like
boom. Here are the highlights. He's a god. Everyone.
Yeah, we got to make sure we cover all the big stopping points rather than making like a emotional arc from beginning to end. I feel like it is really very like episodic, and those are not my kind of film. Just saying, I just
neither.
I mean, I could just read it exactly.
I could just read the book.
Yeah, just read the book. I feel like people can understand why Gandhi wins, especially in addition to the comedy bias with Tootsie. I think we also have the very clear sci-fi bias with E.T., in addition to maybe like the fact that it's marketed to kids sort of thing,
I mean, I had a lot of E.T. toys growing up.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, there's an action figure that can't win Best Picture.
There aren't a lot of Best Picture winners that have action figures.
And it also, and even films like Tootsie, which really people need to go and revisit that because it's an unbelievably good movie that on the surface level tells a story, but there's also a lot more. It's a deceptively easy movie.
Yeah.
It seems, he puts on a dress and blah, blah, blah. But there's all these other things going on, which actually make it a classic.
Right.
So it looks easy compared to, they didn't need 300,000 extras. But the performances, Terry Garr, I love. I'm going to have to go watch that again soon. But again, I think I would take Gandhi out completely and either give it to E.T. or Tootsie.
Yeah, pretty much. Not to like spoil our thoughts for the last segment, but like I think it's pretty clear by now that
foreshadowing for later.
Yeah, E.T. has clearly stood the test of time, and even at that point, in 1982, I feel like you look at those movies and you're like, E.T. has broken through the consciousness and become this other thing. Like people always talk about these days, like elevated horror, things that like go beyond the conventions of the genre. But I feel like this film really elevates beyond the typical sci-fi fare that people would have thought it was.
And it's about childhood. It's something all of us can relate to, which is one of the most important things because not a lot of movies have that.
Right. And I mean, I was reading in Inside Oscar before this just about how there was really this sense that if you were voting for Gandhi, you were giving your vote really mattered. Like it felt like in your own little way, in your own little world, you were making some sort of a difference or something, like drawing attention to this this amazing figure.
He already got its independence, folks. Like,
right, like
it already happened, and the man is dead, so we're not giving him an award.
He's good. They're good. It's cool. But yeah, I just feel like the lack of a real important factor really affected E.T. in the end, because otherwise, it is really revered. So,
and the Oscars really went that way in the early 80s because again, you also had Chariots of Fire the year before.
Yeah.
Which was another, it's British and therefore it is important. Yes. And you have Dame this and Sir so and so. I'm mocking too much. It's one of my mom's favorite movies, but as opposed to Reds and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Then we have Out of Africa down the line, which is, oh boy, we're talking about like Gandhi being rough to sit through sometimes. I mean, that is even worse for me.
That one's, which the only reason I know that is because that's my mom's her go-to movie. She wants to live in the house that she lives in. Well, and the Going on Safari with Robert Redford.
Sure.
I mean,
I can see
he's very pretty in that movie.
He is incredibly handsome.
And
Yeah.
she wears those hats. I mean, come on.
It's true.
Who doesn't love a movie where a woman wears that great hat? Come on.
There you go.
I know what you're saying. But so there's a lot of prestige movies in the 80s that won.
Yeah.
Where the same year other actual classic films come out.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Emperor and the movies that won against. I'm all over the place today. I'm a big Oscar fanatic.
Yeah. Well, you're in the right place.
And we just, like I said, we just recorded The Princess Bride, which came out the same year as
87, Last Emperor. Yeah. Yep.
And, you know, it beat Moonstruck and Fatal Attraction. I mean, come
and Broadcast
on.
News.
And Broadcast News. I mean, come on. Who watches The Last Emperor and who can quote the entire Fatal Attraction, Broadcast News, and Moonstruck? Me. Yeah. I can. Because I just watched Moonstruck again last week.
Yeah, I just watched Moonstruck a few weeks ago for this very podcast. So,
oh, such a good one.
Excellent film. I think I've seen it like 5 times now. But it's just so easy to just put on. It's short, you know, it's quotable. Anyway, off track.
Well, this is what I do. I lead people down rabbit holes.
Yeah. Let us quickly go back to E.T. for a second, because we did get a question from Twitter from Kevin Clowder, who asked us, do you think E.T. deserved any acting nominations? If so, who? We clearly alluded to this earlier. Henry Thomas, I think. Yeah. I mean,
don't know if I would have given him a win.
No, I don't think so. But
unless you put him in supporting, because he was so young, and that was kind of how you had to do it in the early 80s. I'm looking at Timothy Hutton for Ordinary People.
Yeah. I mean, that really hasn't changed that much, to be honest.
It's amazing. And let me ask you this. On the same note, if you were going to put in Henry Thomas, who would you take out that year?
Oh, my.
Oh, that's the tough one.
Of Best Actor. Oh, God.
Best Actor.
Jack Lemmon.
That's who I would have taken out, too.
I guess. I mean, he's perfectly good and missing and everything.
I would have taken out Lemmon, or I would have taken out O'Toole.
Yeah.
And I'm the biggest Peter O'Toole fan ever. But in my reality, Peter O'Toole already won for Lawrence of Arabia and for Land in Winter. So he wouldn't need it now.
So in your reality, he's good. He's covered.
He's already got twice for 2 of his best.
So many awards on his mantle. Yeah.
So that's who I would take out.
Yeah, but that's really tough, honestly.
But since I never even heard of that movie, I'm going to keep in Peter O'Toole because I do absolutely love him in my favorite year. It's a tough category, though.
It really is. Oof.
You've taken it away from Kingsley. That's another one.
I mean, I'd give it to Paul Newman.
I'd give it to Newman or Hoffman, but Hoffman had also already won. No, had Hoffman already won?
Hoffman had already won for Kramer versus Kramer like 3 years ago.
Yeah, Hoffman, that was one of his best performances. Yes, I would give it to Paul Newman, who had never won, and that this was a worthy performance. It wouldn't have just been like...
No, absolutely. It's not like a career thing, which that's what happened with The Color of Money, in my opinion. But
that's what happened with The Color of Money. But if he was going to win, it should have been one for one of his other amazing, perfect, iconic roles, of which he had like 15.
Yeah. So this is a very excellent transition we can make into talking about other Best Picture nominees from this year. We had Missing, we had Tootsie, and we had The Verdict. Since we were just talking about Paul Newman, we can talk about The Verdict first. The Verdict is I would say an underrated film. I feel like it's not talked about as much.
Because it's such a small film.
Yeah. But like... that is so well directed by Sidney Lumet. From the opening, which is like shot almost like a horror film of him like playing the pinball machine. It's just like, ooh, like it really gets you in the mood.
And it's one of the few movies where a man hits a woman, and as a woman, I'm like, that bitch had it coming.
Oh God.
And I don't ever feel like that, but Charlotte Rampling in that movie, in that scene, and he doesn't smack her, he actually punches her,
Oh yeah.
knocks her out. And I was like, I get it.
Like, this makes sense, you know?
And it's and it's one of those things that I feel that he probably didn't win because it is not Tootsie, which is a very showy role.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not Gandhi, which is a big, huge showy role. It's not the over the top, brilliant, but over the top comedic performance that Peter O'Toole gave. And it's not Jack Lemmon in the movie that I didn't say, but it's so subtle.
It's very understated.
Even his last courtroom speech, which those courtroom speeches are always supposed to be big and over the top. It's not. And it's a very quiet performance.
Yeah. And that last speech that he has just really draws you in.
Yep.
You know.
And he's not a really likable guy, but it's subtle.
No, not exactly.
It's a subtle and quiet part.
Right. And so everything you just talked about kind of adds up to not winning an Oscar more often than not.
Yes.
Sadly, no matter who you are, no matter if you're overdue, but
And Sidney Lumet, who's never won Best Director. On what planet? What planet had that man not won an Oscar? Some of the greatest movies ever made.
I know. It's
because they're not big showy movies. That's why.
Right. But every single time he delivers. Every time.
Big time.
You know?
They're very cerebral.
Yes.
Movies. They're movies you have to like pay attention to and
which is sometimes an issue.
Which is sometimes an issue. And movies like Network, which is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a score.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually just sit and pay attention to the movie.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Raw and Dog Day Afternoon. I could go on all day with Sidney Lumet. Love you, Sidney.
And I cannot wait to talk about those movies in the 70s.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Verdict, absolutely great. Just gonna throw it out there. It is on HBO Go / HBO Now, whichever one you have. Perfectly easy to stream if you have HBO.
Very nice.
There you go. So I wanted to get to Tootsie. We got a lot of questions about Tootsie, but first of all, I just wanted you to get any of your thoughts out now about how you feel about Tootsie, because I know you love it.
Absolutely love that movie. I love it more each time I watch it. I love the levels of humor. There's the sight gag, man in a dress, which is always going to be a funny gag. I love that there's depth to it. I think Terry Garr should have won for Best Supporting Actress as opposed to Jessica Lange, because her little manic moments are so good. And people forget that Bill Murray's in it, and Bill Murray is one of the funniest characters in it, but people forget he's in it, but he gets some of the best lines in the movie.
He's so great with the deadpan humor. Oh my God.
When he watches the reveal of Tootsie on the stairs giving his whole monologue, and he's just like, that is the nuttiest hospital. I had to pause the movie because I laughed for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was great. Oh, it's so good. And what was it that Dabney Coleman, did he have like the monopoly on playing assholes?
Yeah.
In the 80s?
Typecast. Yep. Absolutely.
And he played it well, and I don't mean that to demean his career, but he was like, oh, we need a dick. Let's get him.
He's the go-to.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's so clever, so really great and like incisive, sharp satire on the entertainment industry too. And all the weird, the flowing gender dynamics are so fascinating, I think. And so, again, this is something that could have been really offensive or played for laughs in like a bad way or any of these things. But I feel like it treats the subject matter so well and so smartly.
And it's also like a feminist movie, how you look at how Michael looks at Jessica Lange's character and how she's getting treated like crap, but meanwhile he, as a man, is treating Terry Garr like crap, and how he doesn't see that. And did you ever see the bit where Dustin Hoffman was talking about creating that character and how he wanted to be like a beautiful woman, and how there's all these interesting, ordinary looking women in real life that he realized, I don't pay attention to women unless they're beautiful. And like doing this role made him reflect on that. And he was moved to tears telling this story. Go on YouTube and watch it. It's amazing. It's this, like, how it made him look at women and how he views women and all these interesting women that he probably has never met. because they're not superficially attractive.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and you can definitely see how an experience like this can really make you actually like look like, see, this is what the other side feels like, all the time in real life. It's just, yeah, and you as a man are so used to like just going with things because everything's more or less handed to you and you're treated much more fair than any woman ever. So it's so many layers, as you said. We
The
did get
bit about the musical about the love canal, like that's hilarious to me.
yes.
And I love that Dustin Hoffman is probably the kind of actor that Michael was. I can imagine Dustin Hoffman being like, I'm a tomato. I can't sit down. A tomato would not sit down.
I love that bit. Yeah.
It's funny, but you're like, I know Dustin Hoffman in reality is probably an actor just like that.
Yeah.
Which makes me love Dustin Hoffman. I mean, come on.
Just like, I got to work out the logic of this.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if it's a 30-second commercial about tomato.
Yes. I
So
beg you to get therapy.
Right. Yeah. We did get some questions about this from Twitter.
Okay.
Multiple questions. I think people wanted to talk about Tootsie more than anything from any of this year. So let's jump on in. Andrew Carden asks, well, this is more of a begging us to talk about more than a question, but
I love it.
he said, all I ask is you take a few moments to gush over Terry Garr and thank the Academy for one of the all-time great Best Supporting Actress nominations.
Andrew, I feel you. Every single time I watch this movie, I'm like, please let her have been nominated. I think she should have won.
Over Jessica. Yeah.
Over Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange is an amazing actress.
She is queen.
Really. And especially in the 80s, she was in like 5 million movies in the 80s, and she was amazing in every single one of them.
And nominated for most of them.
But Terry Garr is such a phenomenal comedic actress, and you see that in the Mel Brooks movies that she's in, and in Tootsie. And she was my favorite female character in that. So Jessica Lange just kind of seems like the chick that he falls in love with. Her role was kind of a thankless role, but Terry Garr was such a standout, and it makes me sad that she never got that kind of recognition because she's labeled and put on the comedic actress shelf.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like that performance feels like such a classic supporting acting winner, you know? Kind of like the body comic relief who gets a lot of great lines, has kind of a fascinating, happy/tragic arc to her. She
does, and yet you feel for her. And she's manic, and she's crazy, and she's hilarious, but you also feel for her. You feel for her that she doesn't have a lot of self-esteem. You feel for her that Dustin Hoffman treats her really badly.
Awful. Yeah.
Considering that he's having this whole awakening, this whole feminist awakening, and looking at Jessica Lange, and you're like, but as a woman, he's all sensitive to Jessica Lange, and as a man, he's such a heartless asshole to Terry Garr.
Right.
And she's so adorable.
She is. I love the scene where she's just like repeatedly asking him if he's gay, with the chocolates and everything. It's just that whole scene is so well choreographed and fun.
It is.
Yeah.
He's coaching her on how to do the lines.
I know. Yeah. I've seen Tootsie multiple times. I actually just watched it like 3 hours ago. I
need to watch it again.
Yeah. Because I was like, okay, well, I've seen Tootsie. I know Tootsie. I know it. It's fine. I can talk about it on the show. But like, then I was like, I kind of just want to watch it again.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to.
Great. Yeah.
I'm remembering how funny it is. And Charlotte Burning was great in that movie. I mean, it's such a great ensemble.
Stacked cast, absolutely.
And as much as like Dustin Hoffman clearly is the lead, and he's amazing, but really, you forget, I think, until you watch it again, just how great everybody else is as well.
Right.
Gina
Davis. Yeah, in a small little world.
Doctor, the guy who was the dad in Punky Brewster, the actor, and they all call him the Tongue.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So let's move on to some other questions. This is from Jeffrey Kerr, who asked if Jessica Lange didn't have that additional nomination that year for Frances in the lead category, do you think she still would have won Best Supporting Actress for Tootsie? If not, who do you think could have?
For Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress.
Well, Jessica Lange wins. If we're taking her out of the equation, I guess we're saying who do we think can win Best Supporting Actress?
Terry Garr.
Yeah.
And who else was nominated that year? I need to.
Well, my argument, I'll just read the other nominations. We have Glenn Close for The World According to Garp.
I think he was good in that. I never saw it, though.
Yes. Kim Stanley for Frances, and Leslie Ann Warren for Victor Victoria.
Oh, hold on. Stop. She was amazing. I love me some Victor Victoria. But if we were going to award anybody for that, I would want it to be Robert Preston for Best Supporting Actor. But that was another one. Between her and Terry Garr, for me, that would be a coin toss. I wouldn't be able to pick.
Well, I'm just going to stick up for Glenn Close here because I always do. I'm a Glenn Close person. She is my girl. This is her film.
She should be because she's amazing.
Yeah, this is her film debut, and she gets an Oscar nomination. Just saying. Just saying.
She's amazing.
But yeah, she plays like this single mother who becomes like a feminist icon because she writes this feminist manifesto. And
she I read the book. She rapes a soldier to get pregnant.
Yep. That happened.
That is a street. But John Irving, love you, John Irving.
Yeah, very dark film. I'm going to get to that a little later when I talk about other movies that should have been in contention, but really great performance from Glenn Close. She actually won a few Critics Awards for that, so I feel like she probably would have been more in contention, but I do also think Terry Garr is such a classic supporting performance that tends to win that probably, And also, if they had gone another way, Tootsie would have gone home completely empty-handed because this is the only win for Tootsie is Jessica Lange. So,
that's sad.
Yeah, it really is.
Films though, because like I said, Leslie Ann Warren though, man, I love her and Victor Victoria. But also in my world, Glenn Close wins for Fatal Attraction.
Yes.
So. And for Dangerous Liaisons, because come on, she kicked ass in that movie too.
Yeah, she should have won two in a row, honestly, for both. But we've certainly covered that on this show. I've wasted plenty of minutes talking about Glenn Close.
Yes.
But
no, there is no such thing as wasting time gushing.
That's fair. That's fair. But
a minute gushing over Glenn Close is a minute well spent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel seen. But the other part of this question was that if Jessica Lange did not also have Frances in the lead category, which she was nominated for, would she still have won supporting? Because I think there was a sense like we want to reward Jessica Lange for this incredible year she had, 1982, between these two roles. We're clearly giving it to Meryl Streep for Sophie's Choice in lead.
No one's beating Meryl Streep.
No.
Sophie's Choice.
Literally nobody even did all year. She swept the critics. She got a Golden Globe. She got the Oscar.
And yet, that's probably the least of my least favorite performance of hers.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not knocking the performance, but if we were to rank all the ones that I personally love, that one's not near the top. Maybe because that movie is just so you watch it and you want to kill yourself.
Fair. But I don't know about Jessica Lange as far as if she didn't have that lead nomination too and, wanting to reward it. I'd say they probably still maybe go for her just because that is a little bit, I feel like that's slightly category fraud because Jessica Lange is maybe lead, maybe supporting in Tootsie.
Yeah.
And usually when there's two people nominated in the same category, the one with the more screen time tends to win.
Yet, honestly, when I watched that movie, her performance is fine, but I don't even consider her one of the really noteworthy performances of that movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and especially just watching it. It's very fresh in my mind right now,
Yeah, and she's good. But
She
when I
is.
leave that movie, I'm thinking of Terry Garr, Dabney Coleman, Bill Murray, Sidney Pollack as the agent, and Dustin Hoffman.
Right.
Charles Durning, I would have been like, put him in, give him a nod.
So, I mean, yeah, love Jessica Lange, absolutely. And
I
she
mean,
is a legend in
we
her
should
own
give
right.
her awards every year. We should give her the Jessica Lange Award for being Jessica Lange.
Yes.
And she was another one. If you look in the 80s and you look at, there were like 5 actresses who were nominated every single year.
Yep.
Lange, Close,
Streep.
Streep.
Space it, yep.
Like every year, these actresses were nominated for something.
Yeah. They were like the grand dams of the Academy.
And
Yeah.
they deserved it because all of it, I mean, if you look at the performances they were nominated for, you were like,
Yeah.
how did this one not win? Oh, it's because the other one won.
Right, exactly. Because they lost to another legend.
Yeah.
So going back to the Terry Garr, Jessica Lange thing, it's a real big focus among our Twitter followers here.
I like it.
This is from Eoin Daly, who said, "Do you agree with Terry Garr that Jessica Lange was a lead actress in Tootsie?" I have some supporting information on that from Inside Oscar.
Oh,
This is her direct quote that she said to the press.
no, Terry Garr. I kind of
Here
like.
we go.
I
Ready
like
for
this
this?
side of you. I'm ready.
She says, "I am thrilled by the nomination, but what really hurts is that I think Jessica Lange was the leading lady in Tootsie. I played the supporting part with the director telling me, we can't make you look too good in this movie, and I was a real good sport about it, and then I have to share the nomination. Well, I am a little bugged by that."
I like that. I like that she was honest about it.
We do not get that kind of honesty anymore.
Which is sad.
I think it's fair, honestly.
I think it's fair. I think she was a leading lady. Yet there's certain times that actresses are nominated for lead actress, and I think really that was more of a supporting role. I don't think there really was a lead actress in the movie. I mean, I agree that I don't think Jessica Lange should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but I wouldn't necessarily put her in a lead actress because I think the lead of the movie is
Dustin, yeah.
Hoffman. It's sort of, I just watched Silver Linings Playbook again. Like, it bothers me to know that Jennifer Lawrence got a Best Actress nom for that.
Win for that. Yeah.
That to me seems like it is a Bradley Cooper movie.
Yeah.
And Patricia Neal in the movie HUD, that was a supporting role. Why did she get a Best Actress win for that movie? I really just need to go back in time and change everything because I'm the one that really knows how it should have been done.
Clearly, we know better.
But I agree with Terry Garr. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Yep, there you have it. I wanted to briefly talk about Missing. I know that you did not get a chance to see Missing. You had barely even heard of Missing.
I'm embarrassed to say this because I've seen all these other movies so many times.
Well, it certainly is the movie of this lineup that is not exactly remembered. I mean, even Gandhi, people are like, okay, well, that's the Gandhi movie. You look at Missing, and that's such a generic title that you're like, what is that even about?
And yet you look at who's in it, and you're like,
Jack Lemmon, Sissy Spacek.
But when you look at their careers, that's not even a movie that you think of. You think Sissy Spacek, Coal Miner's Daughter, and Carrie, and
Right.
Jack Lemmon, Mr. Roberts, The Apartment, Some Like It Hot, Days of Dawn. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
This is such a blip on their career radars.
It really is, despite the fact that they both get Oscar nominations for it, and so does the film for Best Picture.
And a Palme d'Or.
And it's a Palme d'Or winner, and is kind of sort of forgotten.
Totally.
So, yeah, kind of odd. This was very much a political movie. There was a lot of controversy around it. A lot of people calling it propaganda, like the American government coming out and saying that this isn't what happened. It involves, I don't know if I should probably introduce what it is because a lot of people don't even know what Missing is.
Yeah, probably. That would be a safe bet.
Yeah. So it's kind of just about this moment in the 1970s, something, early 70s, in Chile, where there's this coup that happens that's in the movie is depicted as backed by the United States, kind of deposing the democratically elected socialist. And it's just kind of a film about this American journalist who also goes missing. And
Hence the title of the movie.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And his father, who is this kind of conservative guy played by Jack Lemmon, comes down, teams up with this journalist's girlfriend, who's kind of more liberal, played by Sissy Spacek. And it's a little bit of an odd couple situation that they have, where they have these conflicting ideals, and they're trying to figure out the best course of action to figure out how to find this guy, what to do politically, yada, yada, yada. It's a solid film. It's good for what it is. I am not surprised that it was nominated for Best Picture, because it is one of those very capital I important types of subject matters.
It sounds like a very of the time it came out, which I'm guessing the incidents involved kind of happened recently.
Yeah, within 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was probably a timely issue.
Yeah.
Which is why it probably handled the issue really well, but it's not something that's going to be E.T., which is just universal that we can all relate to.
Yeah. And I will say, having watched it for the first time this very week, the music is so dated. It is purely early 80s. You know when you hear it exactly when it was composed.
Lots of synthesizers.
Yep, because it's originally composed by Vangelis.
Hey, he was having a big decade.
He was having a moment.
Yes. And that year had a big year because he also did Blade Runner, which also came out that year, folks at home.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of dated elements about Missing, certainly more so than any of these other films, but solid for what it is. I was also reading in Inside Oscar that they did a lot of campaigning for this film, as far as trying to woo voters with special booklets and packages and things like that.
Trips to Chile.
Right. Yes, all expense paid trips and all that.
Yes.
No, but yeah, they apparently spent a lot of money on it because the film was kind of a bomb. So they wanted to make sure people knew about it. But it is, I believe, the only film in this lineup to not get a director nomination. So that is probably the clear fifth in this Best Picture lineup, because Das Boot replaces it in director. So that's Missing.
Another movie I have not seen. That's Missing.
There you go. And I guess to sort of wrap up this general segment, this is from, I believe, Alan French, who said, "Was this the strongest Best Picture lineup of the 1980s? If not, which one is?"
Ooh, I'm going to have to actually look that up.
Putting us on the spot here. I will say that it is a strong lineup. I'm not going to go so far as to say it was the best, but
yeah.
I'm just going to look over real quick. I have been talking about...
I'm looking this up right now.
Yeah. I do really like 87 a lot. That's
Rain Man?
No. That's Last Emperor, Broadcast News, Fatal Attraction, Hope and Glory.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, the next, the year before, 81, is pretty solid, I guess, with Chariots of Fire, Atlantic City, On Golden Pond, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Reds.
Yes.
Solid. And then, I mean, honestly, even 1980 itself, which is Ordinary People,
Raging
Coal Miner's...
Bull.
Right, Raging Bull, Coal Miner's Daughter, Elephant Man, and Tess. Pretty good as well.
Yes, and I have not seen Tess, but the other ones... Yeah, I'm going with 87.
Yeah. As far as favorites, that's definitely my favorite. If I was
that would be... Because that's got 2 movies of those nominees are on the Amy Thomasson Top 100.
Heyo.
my oft quoted Amy Thomasson Top 100, but Moonstruck and Fatal Attraction are 2 of the greatest movies ever made.
And I would also put in Broadcast News.
And 89 was also a really good year for movies. I don't agree with a lot of the ones that were nominated that year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's the one where, not the best movies of that year were nominated. Side note, audience members, that's the year Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture, and Do the Right Thing and Glory were not even nominated.
Oh, girl, we talked about it.
Yes. Okay. So you know of what I speak.
Oh, yeah. Very controversial. Ugh.
Wrong. Or as
Yeah.
I like to call it, wrong.
Or as I like to call it,
And you can
objectively
listen to
wrong.
our episode on
That's right, yeah.
Driving Miss Daisy.
And
And Do the Right Thing. We definitely did. And we did Dead Poet Society. And I think My Left Foot.
Yeah.
So many podcasts.
So many podcasts. I know.
So many podcasts. So much
So
anger and indignation.
I just have a lot of feelings.
I do. That would be me. Yes.
Yes.
I have a lot of opinions.
Yes. So moving on to our next segment, our Should Have Been a Contender segment. This is other films nominated for Oscars that year, but not Best Picture, or just any old movie that came out in 1982.
Oh, I've got my
we love.
list.
Oh, Amy's got the list. Oh,
I've
boy.
got my list. I'm all about the lists.
Okay.
Because
So,
really, as far as movies that should have been nominated for Best Picture,
yes,
Ingmar Bergman, Fanny and Alexander.
that was actually next year.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It came out in festivals in 82, but then it was nominated for stuff
Because
in
it's
83.
one of the foreign. It's one of the foreign winners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I agree, regardless.
Another one of those, like, that was one of the best movies.
Yeah.
Ever. As far as classics, I don't know if it'd be, but like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which
Sure.
is not a quote unquote Best Picture nominee.
It's not an Oscar movie.
But great screenplay by Cameron Crowe, who wrote the book. Wonderful depiction about high school, especially in the 80s. An Officer and a Gentleman, Blade Runner, My Favorite Year, Sophie's Choice, which I'm kind of surprised wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I agree with the nominees, but that one was one of those VI, very important movies.
Yep.
Victor Victoria, Diner, which is a classic. Not one of my favorites, but a good movie. There's my list.
There you go. You really ran through them all there.
I did. The Secret of Nim, for those of you that are into classic animation. That was a great movie.
Well,
and My Favorite Year with Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, well, if we want to dig a little deeper into any of these, I would certainly love to talk about Blade Runner, because obviously a major sci-fi classic. They're
huge
influential,
movie.
You know. One of these movies that was kind of sort of appreciated in its time and also kind of not really. And then obviously we got this sequel so many years later, like, well, I guess 35 years later, last year, the Blade Runner 2049.
Yep.
The original is absolute classic. I love Harrison Ford in it. I like Rutger Hauer, obviously, is
the monologue.
Tears in Rain is another one that gives me some chills. So
yep.
Obviously one of the most beautifully original and colorful films that you can just put on and not even like put on the dialogue and just like watch it. So,
and I mean, you know that it lost art direction and all that stuff, which is, I mean, films like that are the reason why we have best art direction categories.
Yeah.
And world building.
I just look at that Gandhi win for art direction and I'm like, you lazy sons of bitches. Like, all you did was just check off Gandhi every single thing
because it looked pretty.
Sure, it looks pretty good, fair, but like
it is.
Blade Runner is just,
but the creation of that whole world with the rain,
exactly,
and the
it's
lights,
a creation of its own, you know?
It is.
So like, what the hell?
It is lazy.
I mean, not to rag on Gandhi anymore, but like I look at some of these technical wins, like costume design. Okay, I guess so. There are costumes in the film.
Yes.
Sure.
If Gandhi had won Best Score, that would have been an outrage.
Well, that would be like an all-time.
But even Vangelis' score in Blade Runner is excellent.
Yeah, and not nominated.
I guess they figured we gave it to you for Chariots of Fire, go away.
Right, but I still think that score is very good on its own,
and
too.
Memorable.
Yeah, it is memorable. Absolutely.
I mean, John Williams, of course, the E.T. score is the one.
Yeah. But, like, do you remember the score to Sophie's Choice? And I can't say that I do.
I don't remember that movie having a score. I remember it being...
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Was that nominated?
Yeah.
What?
Marvin Hamlish.
Oh, I could have an entire podcast called I Hate Marvin Hamlish.
Oh boy.
And it would be like a 15-part series of like, here's something he did and here's why he's a hack.
Wow. Yeah,
I'm needless to say, I'm not a fan.
Sure. more of your strong opinions.
Yes.
Yeah, Blade Runner, obviously a classic, still holds up. The cinematography is of legend. So
that could have gotten best screenplay too. I mean,
should have, yeah.
And it's sci-fi, but more than that, because there's a human story. It's not just that's why a lot of modern sci-fi movies don't hold my attention. It's because they don't have the story, they don't have the heart, they don't have the characters.
Right.
And so I can't connect to that. I can't just sit and watch explosions for 2 hours and be impressed.
Because it's just empty, you know?
It is. It's why the original 3 Star Wars movies will always be the best, because they had the characters, the world, the heart, the emotions, even without all the fancy tech.
Yeah, it's really everything we talked about with E.T., you know?
Yes, which is why E.T. will endure and Avatar is crap.
How dare you? No, I
You
agree.
heard it. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first person to say that.
Yes.
But just a little bit of an offshoot on Blade Runner. This is from San Diego Cinerama, who said, "You are movie god. You can either give The Thing or Blade Runner a Best Picture nom. Which one do you give it to?" I say Blade Runner.
I can answer this because I finally just saw the movie The Thing. I watched it with my husband a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow,
agree.
perfect. Yeah.
And I never saw, I mean, like, I had never watched this movie. And he's like, Amy, you need to see this movie. So we did watch it. It's still fresh in my head. Oh, Blade Runner. For all the reasons we said.
Everything we just said. Copy paste.
Copy paste.
Yeah.
And I think Blade Runner, if it did not get a costume nomination, it should have.
Which it did not, of course.
All of the tech, all of the world stuff in that is amazing.
The only nominations Blade Runner got was art direction and visual effects, which is kind of absurd.
It is absurd. Rutger Hauer should have gotten a nomination for it.
Like, not even sound? I don't get that.
Makeup?
Especially, I mean, no offense to Tootsie, we love Tootsie, but why is that in best sound?
What? That is a little crazy.
Yeah.
And I say this with peace and love, but that's insane.
We love you, Tootsie, but also, what are you doing in best sound?
No.
Also, Gandhi is in
we
there.
know your strengths, Tootsie.
Yeah.
Best what?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No.
That happened.
Was Richard Attenborough one of those they kind of just wanted to give him an Oscar too? Because he'd been around for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It was his time.
See, again, if I could rearrange things, I would have eaten the right way. That would have been a tough. No, I'd give it to Spielberg, but I would have been really tempted to give it to Sidney Pollack too, or Lumet for The Verdict. I wouldn't know. That's a tough year.
I still say Spielberg, but
yeah,
I
looking back, I'm going with Spielberg because in my world, Lumet would have won for Network.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he was also up. Yeah, so again, I have the perfect balance of every way that everyone could have gotten an Oscar.
It's all perfectly. You have like this spreadsheet.
It is. I have this spreadsheet in my head, and if we ever want to know,
it's like a beautiful mind.
Yes, why I never learned math or science, it's because I'm too busy coming up with these charts in my head about Academy Awards.
Yes, and what could have been. Yeah,
I would have been a great cardiologist, but I just sit and think about how Montgomery Clift could have been an Academy Award winner before he died. It's all about priorities, baby.
Yeah,
all about priorities.
Very important things. I just want to go back to The World According to Garp. I have to say, we all heard my thoughts, I should say, on the Cider House Rules when I talked about that in 1999. Not so much a fan.
Really?
Yeah, of the movie. Yeah.
Did you read the book?
No.
If you like The World According, John Irving obviously wrote both books. I've read them both. Very good books. Like couldn't put down.
I could
now
see
my
that.
English teacher side of me is coming out.
Yeah. But I will just suffice to say that The World According to Garp was a lot more satisfying of a film experience for me. Starting with the fact that we have this great central performance by Robin Williams as the titular Garp,
Mm-hmm.
and Glenn Close in a very excellent debut performance. And I think they have really great chemistry between them. They're playing mother and son, despite the fact that they are exactly 4 years apart in real life. But that's okay. Movie magic.
But that's what makes Glenn Close such a big deal, and why she definitely should have won for Fatal Attraction. Because at the beginning of the 80s, she played these motherly Earth Mother characters.
Yeah, exactly.
This and The Big Chill. And then I remember reading that they did not think she would be sexy enough for Fatal Attraction.
Yep.
God, I love that movie.
But she is really she is so perfectly cast.
Perfect actress. She's a perfect
perfectly
actress.
cast. Perfectly cast at Fatal Attraction, perfectly cast in The World According to Garp. Because I think that is a role that could verge into being unlikable, or whatever adjective you might call a woman who has opinions of her own. But she just manages to make this beautiful balance that I find so...
I need to see it. That's one of
so good.
I started the book. I never finished it, but Cider House Rules, I read the book, and A Prayer for Owen Mini. Just hey, shout out John Irving.
Yeah. And John Lithgow is in The World According to Garp as a transgender character. And
got a supporting nom.
Yes, he did. And I have to say that aspect of the film, I think, actually holds up. I cannot say that about a lot of those types of things in the 80s. But that really is just like a very progressive, just a human character who never really gets her being transgender to be just this major focal point.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for pulling that off. And
for having the guts to do that.
Yeah. And making it feel so effortless.
And it's such strange characters who do such strange things, yet it works.
Yes, and that's definitely that's the sense I got from Cider House Rules too, is that there's kind of a strange darkness to both of these things, but they're both kind of presented in a way that feels very pastoral and like just America.
Well, the score of the Cider House Rules, which is used in like commercials and stuff, is absolutely gorgeous. But there's a lot more darkness in the book.
Yeah.
There's a whole character that's like not even in the movie. That's like half of the book's about this one character.
Yeah.
But and it's more pretty New England as opposed to some of the gritty stuff that John Irving gets into.
Right.
But I do love Michael Caine.
Oh yeah, he's lovely. I can say that I do like him in the film, even though I'm not a fan as much of a fan of the film. I just can't get past the Tobey Maguire thing. I'm just gonna put that out there. I can't get past
which of the many parts.
A lot of them.
Him, yeah.
But he in the leading role is just not great. But anyway, Garp is great.
Interesting. Yes.
Very, very dark. Lots of surprising violence in that film, but really very interesting. And it only gets these 2 nominations for John Lithgow and Glenn Close. I think it should have got a few more.
Best adapted screenplay?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see if I had any others.
No, I want to watch it. You sold me. I'm ready to watch it now.
I think you would really like it. Yeah. If you're a fan of the Irving, then definitely.
And I am. And like I said, I have the book. I've read most of the book.
Okay. Well, you mentioned An Officer and a Gentleman, so that's...
and that's another iconic movie.
It is, with a great song, Up Where We Belong, Oscar-winning song.
I don't think I would have given it to Lou Gossett that year.
Oh.
I don't see him as the supporting actor. I think it should have been the other guy. The character that, spoiler alert, kills himself at the end of the movie, whose name I can't remember right now.
I have not seen it, so I don't know.
What? Hold on a minute. Okay. We need to cut this podcast short because you need to see this movie. It is a very good movie. And there's parts of it that are super cheesy, but it is very good. But there's another character in there that I think should have gotten a supporting nomination instead of Gossett's characters. And he was great. Like, I mean, he's a great character, of course, but there's another character that goes through a whole arc.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've ruined the movie, so now you have no reason to see it.
Very good.
But Richard Gere is very good in it. Yep. Robert Loggia is very good in it. Deborah Winger, who's not one of my favorite actresses.
Ouch.
You're a fan? You're a big fan?
Well, I like her in terms of endearment, so I can say that.
I'd like to discuss that movie with you. Not right now, but at some point, because I've got opinions on that movie too.
Oh my god. Okay.
Another John Lithgow movie.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, well, anyway, Cameron McRae asked Deborah Winger in An Officer and a Gentleman, lead or supporting. It feels like she has as much screen time as Louis Gossett Jr., if not slightly less.
I would have put her as supporting. I would say supporting.
Okay.
Because she's sort of the chick. I mean, she is. There's really no way of getting around it. She's the chick in the movie, as opposed to, I think lead actress, I think like Norma Desmond. I think Margot Channing from All About Eve. I think Vivian Leigh. You know what I'm saying? And I think if you're looking at a movie where the leads are equally matched, I would say like Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable. Like that is a clear case of lead and a lead.
Right.
As opposed to lead and the chick that the lead is in love with.
That makes sense.
Like Renee Zellweger and Jerry Maguire, I would not consider her a lead actress role in that movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I don't know if I want to see An Officer and a Gentleman. I think it's one of those.
Good. The ending is so iconic.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly know about it. It's just one of these I didn't get to it this week, sadly, because I had a lot of other things. Plus, other movies that took priority here that I wanted to watch first and rewatch. Yeah. So
just in life, you should see it. It's a good movie. It's very emotionally manipulative at certain parts, but
naturally, yeah.
It's so of its time. It's like not even funny.
It's like a time capsule.
Complete with the Joe Cocker song.
Right, yeah. Perfect.
And I do get chills at the end, and The Simpsons did a parody of the end of the movie once, so.
Okay. This is from Paul H., who said 1982 was a fun year for film, especially sci-fi. Are there any films you enjoyed from this year that got 0 nominations, but you think should have gotten at least 1? For me, that's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Should have at least gotten a tech nom.
Never saw it.
Yeah, I would. I actually wrote down. A lot of the movies that I wanted to talk about had at least 1 nomination. The only one that really didn't was Pink Floyd The Wall.
That came out in the 80s?
Yeah, 82.
Why does that surprise me? It makes sense, but it still kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
I think Pink Floyd, like 60s.
Yeah, 60s, 70s. Yeah. But the movie came
out. But Alan Parker directed it, and I think of him with the 80s because
sure, yeah.
He did Fame, which I watched today for some reason.
Oh.
Don't ask why. It's been
you did not watch Missing? How dare you?
It's been a weird week of movie watching in the Thomasson household.
Okay. But Pink Floyd The Wall is a weird film. It is all over the place. And
of course.
As a Pink Floyd fan,
say that 3 times fast.
Pink Floyd fan. But watching that was kind of a surreal experience, just kind of seeing the music envisioned as video and film and the
watching
animation
and watching it not high. I'm assuming is
I was not high watching it. I was a teenager with my father watching it.
Yeah.
For the first time, and I was like, oh wow, okay, we're just gonna turn that off. That's
how I felt about watching The Who's Tommy with Anne Margaret.
Right. Yep.
That's the stuff nightmares are made of.
Something about these rock bands making these trippy ass movies.
Crazy movies.
But certainly a memorable film that I just wanted to point out, even though, I mean, I wouldn't say it's anywhere near like best of the year, but certainly a memorable one from my childhood. So.
And for many, many, many people.
Yes. So.
Whose brain cells might not even remember watching it because they watched it when they were high.
Yep, exactly. I feel like I watched Pink Floyd The Wall at the perfect time in my life, just as like a moody teenager, just being like, yeah, man, I get this.
That's the time you listen to Pink Floyd. My husband falls into that category.
There you go. Yep.
Great Gig in the Sky, lock yourself in your room, be all depressed and full of angst.
Nobody else gets it like I do, you know?
No one else.
So I think that's pretty much it for questions. I don't know if you had any other movies you want to mention.
No, not really. But The Secret of Nim was a very good animated movie. So,
Yeah.
and The Dark Crystal came out that year, which I've never
Ooh.
seen, but I know a lot of people who have that on their "How did I watch this movie as a child" list.
Yeah, for sure.
But Victor Victoria, also a great movie. My best supporting
Julie.
actor
Mm.
for that year would be the very great Robert Preston.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Victor Victoria?
I've seen a lot of clips from it. I haven't seen the
Okay,
full movie.
but you know that
I
Robert
know a lot about
Preston's
it.
just the best
Yeah,
in that movie. I would have given it to him.
That makes sense. So if we're pretty much all set on that, we can.
Yes.
This 82 is a very good year, as we have clearly outlined here.
Indeed.
So, highly recommend checking out a lot of these. Honestly, like most of the films we talked about they pretty much hold up. So
they really
yeah.
do, and
Yeah.
they really hit a lot of satisfying moods. They're very satisfying films.
Yes, exactly. So, when we come back, we will be delivering our verdict as to whether Gandhi deserved that Best Picture win, or if E.T. deserved it more.
The nominees for the Best Picture, there were so many wonderful ones. I know it was tough to pick one. So here they are. E.T., the Extra-Terrestrial, a story about the children we all are and the grown-ups we sometimes seem to be. A Universal Pictures production, Universal. Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy, producers. Gandhi, the biography of a man who brought pride, dignity, and peace to his nation, and who even today inspires millions of people with undying humanity. An Indo-British Films production, Columbia, Richard Attenborough, producer. Missing, the story of a futile search for truth and freedom in a land where such things no longer exist. The Universal Pictures, Polygram Pictures presentations of an Edward Lewis production, Universal. Edward Lewis and Mildred Lewis, producers. Tootsie, a human comedy of gender and role-playing set in the world of contemporary daytime television. A Mirage, Punch production, Columbia, Sidney Pollack and Dick Richards, producers. The Verdict, a story of law and medicine and the human beings caught between them. A Fox Zanuck Brown production, 20th Century Fox, Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown, producers. It should be a five-way tie. Gandhi, Richard Attenborough, producer.
And we're back. So now we will be delivering our verdict as to whether Gandhi deserved that Best Picture win or if E.T. deserved it. So, Amy, what is your quote-unquote verdict?
E.T. is the best film of that year.
Okay.
Hands down.
So we're just skipping ahead.
We're just skipping ahead. I'm sorry. It's such a strong film.
Yeah.
And it really, I think it's the most universal. It's the most human. It's the one all of us can relate to. And that's why, and so many movies can't do that. It achieves the impossible.
It absolutely does. And I will say Gandhi is not a bad film. It's not one of these things where it's like totally outrageous that Gandhi wins here. But
yeah,
E.T.
it's not How Green Was My Valley beating
Sure,
Citizen
right.
Kane, which
Exactly.
is like, what?
Right. This isn't a Crash beating Brokeback Mountain situation.
Exactly.
So it's fine. But also, E.T. is indeed a classic. It is for all ages. Anyone can sit down in front of it from 5 to 95 and enjoy it, you know? And there's something to be said for movies that can do that and have that universal human experience. So I have to say, absolutely, number one, E.T. Expanding it out to all the Best Picture nominees. I love Tootsie. I love The Verdict. Missing is fine, sure. But I have to say E.T. with that one, too. Since you already gave your thoughts on that, I can assume that E.T.
Yes, and I didn't mean to step on any toes, but I agree.
Cool.
And this is as someone who loves, I mean, Tootsie is one of my favorite movies. But it's it also is kind of a niche movie.
Yeah.
I like it because I was a theater major in college, so I've been around actors and like how weird they are. And I could see people not getting it and just kind of liking the sight gag, oh, a man in a dress, ha ha ha.
Right.
But E.T. it's magical. And there's not a lot of movies that really can get that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantasy, but it's also very real.
Right. There you go. I was wondering how you would rank these of the ones you've seen.
Of the ones I've seen, I'd put E.T. number one, Tootsie, The Verdict, and then Gandhi. Yeah.
Well, you pretty much stole my ranking because I completely agree. E.T., Tootsie, The Verdict, Gandhi, and Missing is at the bottom.
And really, because I didn't like The Verdict the first time I watched it, it took me a while to warm up to it.
Really?
And I don't know why. I think the character of the judge in that movie just seemed like such an over-the-top villain, but that's a total side note. It seemed the villain in the movie just might as well have been twirling a mustache and have a black cape. But I was like, really? He's just this, I'm an asshole, and I'm just going to be an asshole, because that's my entire role in the movie. Yeah. So that kind of, it loses points for that.
That's fair. But yeah, I think all these, no stinkers in the bunch, which is more than I can say for some of them.
Yes.
So good job, Academy.
Yes.
And opening it up to any movie from 82, I just have to say E.T. still wins.
I'm sticking. Yeah, yep. I'm sticking with my win.
Good. Okay. So I just want to end this episode by doing a little quote from Richard Attenborough, who said the following after he won for Best Picture and Best Director. Here's what he said. He said, "I was certain that not only would E.T. win, but that it should win. It was inventive, powerful, and wonderful. I make more mundane movies."
Oh, Sir Richard Attenborough.
So there you have it. Even the guy who beat E.T. thinks E.T. should have taken it.
And I have to say, we agree.
We heartily agree. So thank you very much, Amy Thomasson, for this wonderful episode. This was a blast.
So much fun.
So tell the people where they can hear more of your thoughts on the internet.
You can catch me on Twitter at athomasson11, or you can listen in on the OscarWatch Podcast, which launches every Thursday, and hear more of my vast opinions of films.
And you want to explain a little about like what the types of things you talk about on the show?
We have a couple categories. We either do a Best Picture, a Should Have Been a Contender, which is all focused on a movie that we think should maybe be nominated, a foreign, and animation. And we talk about what came out that year. Was it the Best Picture? And at the end, we discuss, should it have won Best Picture, yes or no?
Yeah. So.
And sometimes we get into arguments.
Yay.
Like listen to our episode on Lincoln. Woo!
Oh God, yeah.
We came to blows over that one, and American Hustle.
It's a fun podcast. I think a lot of my listeners would certainly get a lot out of that podcast. Very similar, lots of geeky people just going at it about the Oscars and movies.
And just love movies.
Yes. So you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin_Jacobson. The show is on Twitter at OscarRunnerUp. And the show is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play. Rate, review, subscribe. And I will leave it up to you listening at home to vote for whether you think Gandhi deserved the Best Picture or if E.T. deserved it at my website at filmtrophies.com, or email me at filmtrophies@gmail.com. So once again, thank you, Amy.
Thank you. It's a blast.
Yes. And I will bid you all adieu.